MMA Roadshow, episode number 244. My name is John Morgan. Cold coffee is not with me, but it's for a very, very good reason. This is a special Thanksgiving Day edition. We always sit down and record the MMA Roadshow on Thursday nights. This week, no different, even though it's Thanksgiving here in the States. And I am home in Las Vegas. Cold Coffee is on vacation. He took some days off this week. Traveled out to Tennessee, I believe, to see some family out there. He's got, family traveling in from different parts, and they're all getting together to spend a few days together. I know they don't get a chance to do that very often, so definitely wanted to let him take some time off, enjoy it. Should say he will be editing the podcast. He will be putting it online and getting it uploaded to the servers and the websites and all that good stuff where it needs to go. So he's doing a little bit of work, but I felt it was only right to make sure he got to enjoy that family time and, not have to record a segment or track down any audio or anything like that. So you're stuck with me for one more week. Thanksgiving Day is in the books. Like I said, Thursday evening at this time in Las Vegas. Got up and worked a shift this morning. I let everybody else take off at MMA Junkie except for shout out to Simon Head over in England and Farah Hanoun in Egypt. They worked with me today at MMA Junkie. Of course, in their countries, Thanksgiving is not a holiday, just another day. So they were willing to sacrifice and give up their Thanksgiving in order to help us work. And all the American staff got to take off. And then in thanks for that, I always volunteer to work Thanksgiving in return for having Christmas Eve off. Because my wife, Christmas Eve is kind of a big deal to her. So that's when I get my day off. But worked a full shift and then cooked a little turkey, mashed potatoes, some pumpkin pie, all the stuff that you do on Thanksgiving. But we did it real small scale, just me and my wife, my son. I had a couple friends over. That was kind of a last-second decision, but they were just hanging out by themselves too. So we decided to all do it together a little bit. Enjoyed that for a little bit. Tried to watch a little bit of football as a Dallas native and therefore a Dallas Cowboys football fan. You always get to enjoy watching the Cowboys on Thanksgiving Day. But, yeah, this one was not quite as enjoyable. Cowboys did not play well today, but, hey, we move on. We're MMA fans. We're not big into the NFL, into the football anyway. We watch a little bit, but yeah, it was a little frustrating. Thought it was just going to be a pretty simple little afternoon. Just sit down and talk some basics, some simple things. But then, of course, we got breaking news right in the middle of the day. UFC President Dana White reaching out to ESPN's Brett Okamoto to let him know that Conor McGregor and Donald Cowboy Cerrone is set for UFC 246 on January 18th in Las Vegas. So now we kind of got a better idea of what that first quarter is going to look like, because that card, we knew we had a card targeted for January 18th, and of course we had a lot of the matchups set. By the way, Farah Hanoun, Nolan King, the two of them were cranking out a lot of fight announcements, man, breaking a lot of fights for the card. So we knew that we had an event coming. We just didn't know if it was going to be a pay-per-view or a fight night, because my understanding was if for whatever reason they couldn't get this Conor McGregor Donald Cerrone fight done in time, they were going to have to shift some plans around a little bit, make this a fight night, and then that would make the February event in Houston UFC 246. I had also heard that there was a potential to move this card out of Las Vegas as well, but everything got done. The big fight happened. It is a pay-per-view. And now we got another big event in Las Vegas, T-Mobile Arena. So that's fantastic because, we got UFC 245 here December 14th, just a couple weeks. That's going to be a fantastic card. And then we've got 246 right here in our backyard in Las Vegas as well. So excited to see that get done. Excited to kind of now have a better understanding of what the first quarter schedule is looking like. And listen, I'm happy this fight is happening. To me, this is the right fight. And key to point out, I guess, it is a welterweight fight. It's a 170-pound fight, and I've seen some negative reaction at people saying, "Hey, listen, it's the fact that it's welterweight. Now I'm not excited about it." And I'll be honest with you, I don't get that. I don't understand that logic at all, because listen, this is two stalwarts of the lightweight division. I mean, Conor McGregor, former champion of the division, obviously a two-division champion, but former champ of the division. Massive star in the sport, Cowboy Cerrone, the living embodiment of anybody, anytime, anywhere. The guy that says, listen, I just want to put on exciting fights so that people say, when Cowboy Cerrone is fighting, I got to find a way to watch it. If I'm driving down the street, I'm going to pull over in my car, my RV or whatever, and I'm going to make sure I see this fight. I mean, that's Cowboy Cerrone. And you can't tell me that this isn't going to impact what happens next at 155 pounds, because it will. These names have been around forever in the division, and yes, they've ventured outside of it a little bit. Of course, Connors go all the way back to 145 pounds, but these two guys have been around this division for a while, and it's going to impact what happens next. And I don't think either one of these is permanent for welterweight. I mean, I think they both like having the option of doing it, but to me, this is just two guys that don't want to have to cut weight, and yes, it's about 7 weeks out from now, so it's a little short. I mean, most people tell you they want 8 weeks, and so we're not quite getting 8 weeks, so maybe that factored into a little bit. But also, listen, you got the holidays, Thanksgiving's going on, you got Christmas coming up a little bit, and not that these two guys are just going to be gorging on the holidays or whatever, but getting a chance to enjoy those holidays with their families, I'm sure they'd appreciate that a little bit more. So it doesn't bother me that much that this is happening at 170. I don't feel like it's a situation where one of these guys is going up to 170 and facing another guy that's an absolute giant that they have no business of being in the cage with. No, just two lightweights that aren't going to cut weight. I don't have a problem with it. So I just don't understand the line of thinking that people have an issue with it. But that said, I like the fight for that reason. But the other thing is I like this matchup. I really, really do. And I like it for several reasons. First of all, if I'm Conor McGregor, this is the right fight. We've talked about it here on the Road Show. What's the fight you'd book? It'd be this one. Conor's in a very unique situation right now. Still the biggest star, no question about it. The biggest star in MMA. But he needs a win. He needs a win. And it's been over 3 years. It's been a while since his scintillating win over Eddie Alvarez. That's a while back. And he needs a win. Now, would he still remain a star even if he loses? Of course he would. Of course he would. But I think this is the best matchup possible for him. Now, I don't find it to be a gimme matchup. I'll readily admit I am a Cowboy Cerrone homer. If you listen to the MMA Roadshow for long, that's the case. I've always enjoyed watching the guy fight from his WC days on. I find him to be an interesting character, an interesting personality. Count me as a fan of Donald Cerrone. He's my go-to answer when people say, "Oh, who's your favorite fighter?" I mean, the truth of the matter is, it's hard to have a favorite fighter, man. We come in contact with so many great men and women, and we see so many great fights, and all over the world, and we've been doing this for so long. But that's kind of a cop-out answer if you're talking to people over a frosty beverage, or maybe you're doing a quick radio interview or something like that. So Cowboy Cerrone is kind of my go-to answer, and it's not necessarily a fake answer. I mean, I like guys like him, the living embodiment of anybody, anytime, anywhere. I love it. So I don't think that this is just some kind of walkover fight for Conor McGregor. Cowboy Cerrone is dangerous. Now, yes, he's had setbacks, and he has not looked phenomenal as of late, but he's still dangerous. And so I think that this is not necessarily an easy fight. Now, that said, it's the fight I wanted to see. Khabib Nurmagomedov. I know Conor McGregor wanted the rematch with Khabib Nurmagomedov. I can respect the fact that Conor wanted to get in there with Khabib again. I love that about Conor. That type of confidence. It's the type that you have to have. I mean, to think, hey, man, if I just made one little adjustment, if I just changed this just a touch, I could have beaten Khabib Nurmagomedov. Now, personally, I don't really believe that, and I don't mean that as any disrespect to Conor McGregor, but I just think Khabib is an awful stylistic matchup for him. I always have, and I've always said it. I believe that Khabib beats Conor McGregor nearly every time they fight. If they fought 100 times, it's just a bad matchup for him. So I can respect Conor for wanting that rematch, but it's not the fight that I wanted to see. throwing Tony Ferguson out there as a potential opponent for Conor McGregor. Don't hate the fight. Don't hate the fight. Now, again, another tough one for Conor McGregor, given the stylistic matchup. But also, Tony Ferguson has got to fight Khabib Nurmagomedov. Not just because we got to see that fight. Not just because we've been trying to see it forever. But just because Tony Ferguson deserves a damn title fight. You can't skip him over again. You just can't. Dustin Poirier, I would have been okay with that. I do think Dustin Poirier is a different monster than when they fought the first time around, but Conor does own a win over him, and maybe there's still some mental games he can play there. Maybe there's a little psychology that he can glean out of that, and I hope they do meet up again. I think the rematch would be great. I think that would have been a suitable fit here as well. Justin Gaethje is a fight that I don't think Conor McGregor would fare too well in, if I'm being honest with you. I think that's a bad matchup for him as well. The striking is there. Yes, I do think because of the way Justin chooses to fight, Conor would have a better chance against him than he would against somebody like Khabib Nurmagomedov. But I do think Justin Gaethje would have the edge, especially if he were to turn to that wrestling. I don't know if he would. He likes to swang and bang, as Derek Lewis says. So, but I think that would be a tough match too. So for me, in terms of star power and in terms of the matchmaking, I think this fight with Donald Cerrone was absolutely the fight to make for Conor McGregor. And I'm glad that they were able to get it done. It's a big moment in his career, man. It's a big moment in Conor McGregor's career. He needs a win. If he loses, I mean, still a star. You just can't deny what a star the guy is, man. I can tell you as a website operator the numbers that he generates. I mean, if you track pay-per-view buys at all and that sort of thing, you see it. He would still remain a star, and there would be people, I think, that follow him almost blindly at this point. They really would. But I think he needs to win, man. It's been a while. It's been a while. 2-2 in his last 4 MMA fights. Also the loss scattered in there to Floyd Mayweather as well. I mean, make what you will out of that. I mean, that was crazy, and it made him rich, so it was definitely worth it, man. He changed his life. He changed his whole family's life, his heir's life. So good for him for chasing after it. But I do feel like Conor McGregor is in need of a win right now. And I don't know that just coming in, if it's epic fight of the year type stuff and he comes up short via split decision, that's not gonna hurt Conor McGregor. That's not gonna hurt his marketability or impact it. But if he goes out there and for some reason gets pieced up in the opening round, and I'm not saying that's what what I'm predicting will happen, but if something like that happens, I don't know, man. I don't know. I mean, where would his motivation stand? And then where do other people feel like they want to call the guy out? I mean, kick the guy while he's down. So I don't know. I feel like this is a big moment for Conor McGregor. I really, really do. And then I'm just happy for Cowboy Cerrone because we've learned that what comes along with this fight is a new deal as well. And that's good because it means that it is a money fight for Cowboy Cerrone. He was the one that was always saying along, and he wasn't wrong, of, hey, do you want that money fight with Conor McGregor? You say, why is it a money fight? I got a contract. I get paid what I get paid. It doesn't matter. And he's right. If you don't negotiate a new deal, it's not a money fight. But, pay-per-view headliner, you got to think he's getting points, even though this is a non-title fight. Conor McGregor generates points. He generates pay-per-view buys. So, just big moment, man. Big moment for Cowboy Cerrone, too. So you got to be happy for him. And there you go. It's done. It's done. I'm excited about it, man. I really am. It'll be a great way to kick off the new year. I did see some people, at least in our comment section, MMA Junkie, kind of complaining about the card and saying, well, listen, I don't know about this. I'm surprised. I think the card's pretty decent. Conor McGregor, Cowboy Cerrone is your headliner. I mean, come on, that's going to get a lot of attention. Anthony Pettis and Diego Ferreira is on there. Macy Barber and Roxanne Modafferi. That's a great one as well. Listen, Claudia Gadelha, Alexa Grasso's on it, Andre Fili, Sadiq Yusuf's on. I mean, there's some good fights to me. I really think there are. I guess I understand. I don't know. I guess there's always going to be criticism, and maybe look at it on paper. And there's still fights to be announced. Let's make that clear too. There's still fights to be booked, but I don't really have an issue with the card. I mean, uh, as a pay per view, maybe people are going to say if they don't have another a title fight on there or something like that. But um, I'll be interested to see what people's attitude is, because let's not forget there will be a 4 week stretch with no UFCs. After UFC 245, then on December 21st, you've got the fight night over in South Korea, Busan, and then you got 4 weeks until this event, UFC 246. So we'll see if people are pining a little bit for some MMA at that point. Everybody talks about oversaturation. There's too much MMA. There's too much MMA. We'll see. We'll see what people are thinking after that 4 week stretch. I like it. I'm actually really happy about having the 4 weeks in a row with no UFC event. I mean, we're still gonna have some Bellator in there, some PFL, but I love the fact that we're not gonna have to work on Christmas week, working a big UFC event. It's tough. You're trying to balance that out with being with your family and on Christmas, and especially once you have a kid, man, it's challenging. So selfishly, I am pretty excited about the break that we're gonna have, and that we're not doing that work on Christmas week. But we're getting a little pause in the action, so we'll see what people think about the card. But there you go, UFC 246. Let's get it announced officially. Let's get it. Let's hopefully there's some media sessions coming, and start getting the interest, because I tell you, there were a lot of people, even on our staff, that were getting Connor fatigue of talking about, he's tweeting this, he's saying that, he's tweeting that, he's saying this. But at least he has a fight book. Now, guess you can't talk about the fight, without saying, there are some allegations of sexual abuse, with, him as the center of the investigation over in Ireland. Not a lot of details known because of the way the Irish crime system, or judicial system works, I should say. He will have to be asked about it. We're going to have to ask the UFC about it. Why do you feel comfortable booking him under circumstances like this? But important to note as well, innocent until proven guilty. And we'll get to more on that in a little bit. But yeah, I don't want to get into that right now. We'll have to talk about that though. But listen, it will have to be addressed. That's all I'll say. It will have to be addressed, and we'll certainly bring it up. Listen, last time I talked to you, wrapping up with CFFC 80, man. The last week out, I was over at Joint Base Langley Eustis, and had a fun fight card. We ended up having 9 fights and 9 finishes. So the prelims were all finishes. The main card was all finishes. It was a lot of fun. Very, very exciting night. Very, very cool atmosphere, man. We were in the hangar there, a little, right on the airfield. There were all these, helicopters and stuff landed out there and around it, and the fighters were actually walking in through a Chinook helicopter. They had like the bay door open, and they'd walk out, and there's kind of smoke coming out through there. Really, really cool. It's on UFC Fight Pass, so if you haven't checked it out, please do. CFFC 80, that's Cage Fury Fighting Championships 80. Fight for the troops. Myself, CM Punk, and Jessica Penne were on the call. And it was fun too, because we did things a little bit different this time. There was no backstage area, because we're not like in a hotel or an event area. I mean, we're in a hangar. So since there wasn't a backstage area for Jessica Penne to do her interviews, she ended up doing the interviews in Cage all night, except for the main event. CM Punk did the main event, but she did all the rest of them. And she did a great job. It was the first time doing it. She did a great job, but rather than have her just sit around and wait on that, she jumped in our booth as well. So we had a 3-man booth going with myself, CM Punk, and Jessica Penne, and that was a lot of fun. I thought they were great, man. They're both very, very knowledgeable. I mean, I know people like to take shots at CM Punk for his UFC career, but the guy is knowledgeable in the game, still trains actively, and does a really good job. And comes in, does his research, talks to the fighters, gets little nuggets here and there. So it was fun, and of course. Jessica Penne been fighting at a high level for a long time, former Invicta champ, fought in the UFC. So anyway, she's been around, been there, done that. She's got some great knowledge as well. So, wrestling game especially, very, very sharp. So it was fun. It was fun. I really, really enjoyed it. Like I said, check it out on UFC Fight Pass if you have not. Like I said, a couple of real, quickly, just big moments of the night. Other than as a whole, just being pretty fantastic with the atmosphere. Like I said, the troops were in there. They were loud. They were having a good time. Their leadership was actually pretty fun as well. Their commander got on the mic for a little while. She got them all riled up, so it was fun. But in addition to just finishes galore, which always makes it fun, the main event, Mike Biggie Rhodes picked up a win over Najim Wali, former UFC welterweight, of course. Fights more at middleweight now, but on kind of shorter notice type fights and opportunities like this, he said, look, I'll fight at 205 pounds. I'm not saying it's necessarily where I need to be at all times, but, I'll take some light heavyweight fights. But Najim Wali is a beast, man. He's a big dude. He's a legitimate 205er, and Biggie Rhodes, you could tell the opening round, he was trying to counter a little bit, and he was running into some trouble. And I did not like the shots he was taking. Low kicks, big punches, and he dropped the opening round. It wasn't looking good, and you could see, I think, a little bit of a look on his face, like, yeah, man, I think I got a little bit more than I bargained for here. But he made some adjustments going to the second round. I can't remember if it was Punk or Penny that we talked about, say, what kind of adjustments do you got to make going into round two? And they, both say, hey, you got to be first, man. I know you like to counter, but it's not going to work today, not against a guy like this. And sure enough, he came out and he was first to the punch. And 55 seconds into the second round, he got the knockout, claimed the vacant light heavyweight title. And then it was a cool moment because he's celebrating. I mean, he pulls off the win. He turns around and he connects eyes with Punk basically, and Punk is standing up. He's celebrating the win too. He's excited. I mean, listen. Punk tried to stay unbiased the whole time. He admitted, hey, this is my teammate, but I'm going to call it right down the middle. But he got excited. I kind of almost think back to that famous picture of John Anik, standing up when Daniel Cormier was victorious. Not only was it just an exciting finish, so you're pumped up, and as an announcer, sometimes you just can't help but like, oh my God, hands on the head or stand or whatever. But then it's somebody really well as well. So Punk kind of stands up, and Rhodes turns around and just I think it's the first person he sees. I don't know that he was actually looking for Punk. I think we were just kind of opposite direction, and he stepped back, did a 180, locked eyes with him. I mean, it was just this intense scowl on his face and like half celebration, half like just primordial, that kind of stuff. And locked eyes and kind of walked to him, and man, it was cool. So to be standing there right next to it and kind of watch it all unfold, it was really, really cool. And then had a chance to talk to Mike Rhodes afterwards. Of course, knew him from his UFC run, but it was cool to see him pick up that win at 205 pounds. Now, how long he'll want to defend that light heavyweight title, I do not know, because now he's seeing some big boys at light heavyweight. But like I said, worth checking out on CFFC 80. The other big moment was William Knight, the UFC signee, came off Dana White's Contender Series, got the UFC developmental deal. He lost. He lost. He suffered a first-round loss to Tafan Chukwi, who was 2-0 coming in, but just impressed the heck out of us all week. Now, I want to preface this by saying the stoppage was awful. I mean, it was absolutely terrible. It was early. CM Punk made some pretty good case for why maybe it was okay. Knight did go down in kind of a weird position. He went to the ground, and he was kind of tripoded out with his hands out wide, and he looked like he was trying to duck his head a little bit, if you can imagine. Again, he's on his knees, he's tripoded, his head is kind of tripoded on the ground, his arms are out wide, and it looks like he's kind of trying to shrug his shoulders a little bit to use that as defense on the side of the head, and he kind of tucks the head a little bit as well because Tafan Chukwi is trying to deliver some punches. It just didn't look right to me. I do understand what Punk is saying. We watched the replays, and I do understand where he was coming from, and I do appreciate fighter safety, but to me, it looked like the fight got stopped early, and William Knight certainly felt that way. He protested. Former colleague Ben Folks, I think, has kind of coined the phrase the what the fuck test, meaning that if the fighter immediately after the referee stops the action, turns to him and goes what the fuck, the stoppage was early, and I think that's a funny way to measure it, but very very true. William Knight protested immediately, so looked a little early, so I preface it by saying all that because I also want to say William Knight was not winning this fight. It wasn't as if he was dominating, and then in some freak moment, Tafon Chukwi catches him with something, and then the fight stopped early. It was not that way. Tafon Chukwi impressed us all week with his confidence, and man, it's just one of those times where a guy's not nervous. He's not caught up by the moment. Knew his opponent, respected his opponent, wasn't trying to trash talk him, but just said, man, I've seen this guy on the regional scene. We've crossed paths out here. I knew I was going to fight him, and now it's happening. Big win for Tafon Chukwi. So if you were like me, that was somebody that was impressed by William Knight, I would say put Tafon Chukwi on your radar as well. Somebody you want to keep an eye on. The guy is definitely worth watching. So, one last funny story about CFFC. I watched it back and I was like, dude, it was as bad as I thought it was. During the opening, it was a little chilly. So we're in this hangar and the doors are open and it was a little cold. Like, normally I take my jacket off, wear a coat and tie, but man, I'm not a suit guy. I think anybody that knows me is probably pretty aware. I'm not a suit guy, man. I'm a polo and shorts kind of guy. T-shirt if I'm not working. So normally, I do the open and I take my jacket off immediately so I can be a little bit more comfortable in just a shirt and tie. But it was so chilly, like I kept my jacket on cage side the whole time. So it wasn't horrible, but apparently the other side of the cage we were told was way warmer. But where we were sitting, I guess there was just a draft or something. Poor Jessica Penne was wearing a dress, and she was putting a coat on every time she would walk back over. But she said she was freezing. She said her legs were basically numb by the end of the night because she didn't have any way of covering them. But anyway, so it's a little cold, and as you're calling the fights, you're getting into it. No big deal. Your focus is really on that, right? But after the final prelim, we had a little bit of spare time until we shot the open. And I don't know, I just got a little chilly, I guess, while it was going on, and I was kind of shaking a little bit. Just not bad, but you get a little bit of a shudder there when you're cold. But we go to do the opening. It's myself and CM Punk, and we go to the open, and we're doing it live, and I said, my mouth just wouldn't work right, damn it. My mouth would not work right, and I didn't mean to say it, but I basically said, welcome to Fort Useless. Felt like such an idiot, and I could hear it coming out of my mouth. I could hear the words coming out of my mouth and thought, you idiot. Like, here we are, guests on this military installation on this special fight for the troops, and instead of Fort Eustis, you called it Fort Useless. So definitely the worst open I've ever had. I was telling the staff about it at MMA Junkie. I said I'll chalk it up to it'll be like my Bill Superfoot Wallace moment where he burps as the opening is happening at UFC 1. So I was pretty embarrassed by that, but fortunately I think we recovered decent enough the rest of the night. I had a good time. The first show for CFFC next year is February 1st. At the Parks Casino just outside the Philadelphia area. 3 title fights are going to be on the line there. And hopefully I'll be on the mic. We don't have the 2020 schedule yet, but fingers crossed I'll be calling those fights because I really do enjoy getting out there and calling the fight. So, man, there's no easy way to really transition in or out of this, but I mentioned talking about innocent until proven guilty earlier, and by this point I think anybody that's been following the news has seen that Anaya Blanchard is confirmed dead at this point. Of course, that is the stepdaughter of UFC heavyweight. Um, man, I don't. Walt Harris is one of the nicest guys that you'll ever meet. I mean, really, one of the nicest guys that you'll ever come in contact with. And it wouldn't matter if he wasn't. It wouldn't matter if he was the biggest a-hole on the face of the planet. Um, as a father, you know, the loss of a child is just incomprehensible. And you know, you know, I saw some assholes, and there's no other word for it, assholes, in our comment section. You know, say, it's just his stepdaughter. Like, you sick. I banned him right away. I mean, just kicked him off. I mean, what ridiculous. But this is just awful, you know. And I can't imagine. It's, it, you know, he was supposed to headline next week in Washington D.C. and not that that matters, but it's just at a time when it seemed like his life, man, everything was starting to click. You know, everything was starting to happen for him, man. And you know, he's a guy that's always worn his heart on his sleeve and been open and honest about his struggles and the difficulties and his rocky beginning in the UFC. And it finally felt like he was starting to get on a roll. And now this is something that can just take your life apart, you know? Um, and I hope that he's able to find some way to battle through this, and that he and his family are able to somehow emerge on the other side of this. Um, because again, tragedy like this is just incomprehensible. Um, just a couple things that stand out to me about this. First of all, in life, and I'll be honest too. Sometimes I'm guilty of saying, "Don't get involved, stay out of the way," you know. But there was a witness that didn't say anything at the time of, and the witness came back and said something later. But there was a witness who saw her being forced into her car against her will and didn't say anything. And I get it. I'm not heaping blame on this person. Who could imagine the tragedy that was about to unfold? Nobody thinks that. But if you see something that's out of the norm, that doesn't seem right, say something to somebody. That's what the police are there for, is to go investigate and see if there is something wrong. Maybe there was nothing wrong, but that's what they're there for. Say something, man. Maybe this could have saved her life. And again, I'm not blaming this person. They are not the one responsible for this, but they maybe could have prevented it. And that's sad to say. That's sad to think of. But what also stands out to me is that it is so wrong that this guy, this monster that apparently kidnapped and murdered Anaya Blanchard, was on the streets despite having been facing some very, very serious crimes prior. I mean, how can you be charged with kidnapping and then be out? How is that possible? It just it, it's beyond understanding. It's beyond, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. Um, Attempted murder, kidnapping. He was charged with these things, and he was out on bail. Innocent until proven guilty. I understand that, but there's got to be a limit to that. There's got to be a limit to that. There, there's going to be legislation, I hope, coming out. There's a petition that's out there, um, that to make a law in Anaya's name that says, listen, if you are charged with these crimes, you can't be out on the streets. And I understand that's going to frustrate some people and upset some people. You know, again, innocent until proven guilty, right to a speedy trial, all those things. I understand that, but it, I don't know, man. I feel like you give up some rights when you get charged with something like that. And I understand somebody can probably have a really good argument with me, and I won't even try to say that you're wrong, to say, oh, but John, this could be abused. What if people are falsely accused and then they're not allowed back on the streets while they await trial? And you know what, man? There's something to be said for that. There's something to be said for that. But this does not seem right to me. And I think there's going to be, hopefully some legislation. Hopefully this will open some eyes and get some people talking to say that, man, this doesn't make sense. We got to fix this part of our legal system. But I go through all that to say this. I am not a very political person. I'll be honest. I don't vote a whole lot. I vote in the big presidential elections and those sort of things, but to get out and get involved in all the other ones, I don't. And you know what? I absolutely should. What this represents to me is a lot of times people don't really want to get involved with something or want to change something until it affects them personally or affects somebody that they know. But Walt is somebody that we knew. He's somebody that we all know, right? I mean, we've interviewed him a bunch at MMA Junkie, so I mean, I know him personally, but as an MMA fan, you've seen him, you've heard his interviews, you've seen his fights, you've been entertained. This is something that is going to impact him immeasurably in life, and this is someone you know. This is someone from our community, So if you see some type of legislation, or if you believe you have the right answer, if you believe you know what the right legislation is, get it started, get it impacted, get it on bills, go and vote for it, go make it happen, get involved. If you see something, say something, and get involved. If you hear of this act, support it, please, support it. And again, I'm not a political person, and again, I'm sure whatever's written won't be perfect. I do understand that people deserve the right to justice, but it just doesn't seem right to me. This just seems like it was somehow preventable, like this was a mistake in our justice system. So, heart goes out to Walt, man. It really does. It's senseless, senseless. Like I said, no easy way into that, no easy way out of it either. But it definitely had to be said. On a much different note and a much brighter note, I will say that over the next month or so, keep it on MMA Junkie. We're gonna have some cool best of the decade content coming your way. It's some stuff that we're doing. I mean, the end of a 10-year period begs to be reviewed and looked at and discussed. And we've come up with some good stuff. Simon Simano, our managing editor, he had some concepts and that he's putting into place, and we've already started the development of them. And I can tell you, it got some pretty aggressive bickering going on in our own staff. So keep an eye out for that. Keep an eye out for some end of decade stuff. And speaking of other things to keep an eye out for, I want to say, give an official welcome. Danny Segura is now part of the MMA Junkie team. He's kind of been not necessarily behind the scenes, but he's been doing some training and working with Simon Simano to get set up, and it takes a little time to get in the system and just get all that stuff done. But of course, he used to be a part of the MMA fighting team. He's based out in New York, so I'm sure you'll see him at a lot of our East Coast shows and New York shows, that sort of thing. But you're going to see him involved in some more stuff, and he did something new this week, pretty cool, using the USA Today's New York offices. Now, you're going to see bits and pieces of this video as well, but I thought it'd be a cool way to kind of introduce him to the MMA Junkie team, man. He sat down and had an extended interview via Skype with Michael Chiesa, and of course, Michael Chiesa has a big fight coming up with Rafael dos Anjos in the new year. And Danny Segura did this video Skype interview, which I encourage you, if you want to check out the full thing. It's the full interview is on YouTube, and then we've also got some cut down moments of this that'll be in different video packages, different stories that we have on MMA Junkie. Um, Abby Subban, our videographer over there in England, he did the edit on it. He did a fantastic job syncing up the 2 camera files, laying some nice B-roll over the top of it. It looks really, really good. So it's worth checking out on video, but I know sometimes that long of a video might be tough to digest for a lot of people. But in audio form, sometimes it's a little bit easier. So I thought, what better way to kind of bring an official welcome of Danny Segura to the team, and let you know that he's started and he's contributing right away than to play his interview with Michael Chiesa. So this is Danny Segura, and I think I wouldn't necessarily say I guess it's his roadshow debut. We'll definitely have him on individually as well. We were talking to him. It was kind of during the last New York Fight Week. We knew behind the scenes what was happening, but he was still kind of grinding with his own team, so we couldn't do much that week. I was kind of hoping to sneak him on the show that week and have a little pre-announcement introduction to Danny Segura as well. Didn't quite get that done, but listen, right out of the gate, he's doing some big stuff, and he's going to be trying to do some new stuff out there in New York. So without further ado, here's Michael Chiesa with Danny Segura.
Danny Segura here for MMAJunkie.com. We're here in our New York City studios. Today, we'll be chatting with a former champion of The Ultimate Fighter, a man who somewhat recently switched weight classes and has been killing it since his switch of divisions. He also has a pretty big fight coming up, and I also heard he's the biggest Pearl Jam fan in the world. Of course, we are talking about Michael Chiesa, who joins us via Skype. Hey, Michael, how are you?
I'm doing really good, man. Just out in Spokane right now, enjoying this windy weather.
So Matt Erickson from our site told me that you're the biggest Pearl Jam fan in the world. Is that correct?
Dude, 100%. Yeah, diehard Pearl Jam fan. It's like one of my first CDs I ever got growing up. And you couple that with the fact that Sam Sicilian, my teammates, he's what inspired me to become such a big Pearl Jam fan. So you put the two of us together, yeah, we are diehards. Long live Eddie, dude. He's the last front man alive from the grunge era. So you gotta love the guy. You gotta love the band.
What's your go-to song? If we were in the car right now and I'd be like, pop a Pearl Jam song, what's your choosing?
That depends on what we're about to do. You know what I mean? If I've had a couple cold ones and I feel like, drunk dialing Sam, I'm gonna listen to Yellow Ledbetter because that's his favorite song. He actually danced to his wife at his wedding to it. If I'm getting ready to go train or go snowboard or something, I'll listen to Y or Once. I listen to a lot of their live stuff too. So, I like all their stuff.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about your fighting career. It's getting pretty interesting. You got a big fight coming up. You'll be fighting former UFC champion Rafael dos Anjos at welterweight on January 25th, part of the UFC Raleigh card in North Carolina. First of all, how did this bout come together? Because this is a pretty big bout in that division.
Yeah. Well, it got offered to me a lot earlier this year, and just at that point in time, I was going through some family stuff and just needed to kind of handle that before I could jump into a fight. And so I've kind of known it was on the radar for a while, but I kind of thought that it would fall off the table. Just because matchups can change, and I know that's the direction they wanted to go, and the matchup stuck. So to my understanding, I think that he asked for the fight, and I'm super stoked on it. It's these waters at welterweight are pretty murky right now. There's a lot of good talent outside of the top 15. It's pretty deep, and so it's like when you got a guy like Rafael dos Anjos, asking to fight you, you jump all over it. You know what I mean? And I like the way I match up with the guy. And it's a good gauge to see where I'm at. This guy everybody wants to knack the guy for, losing what he's like one in his last 4, but it's like, look who he's lost to. He's lost to the best. You know what I mean? And it's not like he got his shit kicked in. He was in competitive fights with the best guys in the division. So, I'm not in this sport to be anything less than the best. So this is the right fight for me right now. And I'm excited for January 25th.
I know a while ago you said that you wanted to renegotiate your contract, and part of that negotiation was getting a ranked opponent. Is this sort of the perfect case scenario for you? Was this guy at the top of your list, or were there other names that you were interested in?
I kind of got over the part of having a name. You know what I mean? Like I kind of lobbied for the Neil Magny fight. And I didn't like I kind of fell into that rut of like all these guys call out Neil Magny. And I'm like, God, I don't want to be one of those guys because that's not why I'm doing it. You know what I mean? But I just decided to disregard names and just say, going into this new deal, I want to fight a ranked guy. And I think the UFC, I think they wanted to put me there. I mean, when I left the rankings at lightweight, I was ranked number 9. So it's like, it only makes sense to put me in there against these ranked guys. And, you know, I got all that and then some, you know what I mean? To get a chance to fight a guy, not only is he in the top 15, this guy's, you know, number 5 or number 6 in the world right now. I'm like, fuck, you know, I'm pumped. This is what I want. I feel the least amount of pressure when I'm fighting the better guy.
So has the UFC told you what your placement is going to be on this card? Because as you said, it's pretty stacked, but this is a very important fight.
I know it's going to be the main card. I mean, I'm assuming it is. You know, we'll see. You know, they haven't said anything to me about that. You know, but we'll find out. Either way, it doesn't matter to me. It can be the first fight of the card. It can be the last fight on the card. I get a chance to fight Rafael dos Anjos, guy I got a lot of respect for. So card placement doesn't matter to me. I'm just excited for the opportunity to compete against him for sure.
And you said there you negotiated a new contract. You're happy with what you got, and how many fights did you get?
Very happy with the deal. Pretty sure it's a 5-fight deal. I can't really say too much about the language of it, but there's some things in there that I really like that I hadn't had in my contracts before. The things that kind of match up to my ultimate goal. You know what I mean? So that's about all I can say about it, but I'm very pleased with where I'm at. Shout out to Daniel Rubenstein for getting the job done. You crazy guy.
You've been now fighting at welterweight for 2 fights. How do you feel like? Do you feel like a welterweight now? And I guess how has your experience been in this new weight class? So far,
Dude,
you're doing pretty good.
It's been unreal. And I think it's funny that a lot of these guys, you know, I saw Randy Brown's call out, which I thought was funny, and I saw in one of his interviews. You know, I pay close attention to these things, whether you call me out or not. If there's a welterweight fighting on a UFC card, I watch your fight, I watch your interviews. I'm very attentive of everything that goes on in my weight class. And when he tried to say he's not even a real welterweight, he hasn't even fought real welterweights. I'm like, dude, if you saw how big I am in real life, you would shit your pants. Like, I am not a fucking 55-pounder anymore. I'm 6'2". I'm 200 pounds in shape. Like, I'm not a lightweight anymore. It's just these guys. If anybody goes into a fight thinking I'm really not a welterweight, then they're making a really big mistake. You know what I mean? But you know, this has just been awesome. You know, when I was fighting at 55, I just started to kind of get burned out on the sport. You know what I mean? And that's like, it wasn't making sense to me. I'm like, I'm not even 30. These guys have these long careers. Why is this so hard for me? And it wasn't like I'm a mentally tough guy. I love my job, but I couldn't really put my finger on it until it kind of dawned on me when I had to kind of, after the Pettis fight, I need to look at the big picture. And it's like, you know, you need to go up a weight class. And ever since I've done that, I feel like I just started my career over again. You know, I'm training all the time. I never want to break. You know, when I fought at 55, I get done with the fight and it's like, I don't even want to touch the gym for a month. I'm burned out. You know what I mean? Those camps, the camps at welterweight are tougher, but my body can handle it because I can eat and I can nurture myself. You know, a camp for 155 is like all my training, but you have to finish the night with, you know, a 5-mile run every night, you know, and it's just like, that's not the way a camp should be. A camp should be, you should be run down and tired from just training for your fight, not training for the scale.
I guess, how would you look back at your career at 155? And do you wish you would have maybe done the switch sooner?
No, I mean, as crazy as that sounds, there's no way I could have, you know what I mean? Things really got hard for me once I got ranked. So it's like, you know, like I said earlier, like I expect to be nothing less than a world champion by the time I hang up my gloves. You know what I mean? I will win a world title one day. There is no ifs, ands, or buts. And so when that's the ultimate goal, and I'm finally getting myself in a real position to where I can make that happen, I can't just pull back and say, okay, I need to change something now. It's like, you know, you just have to deal with it, you know, and fighting such a learning experience throughout your whole career. Like you don't figure things out until you come up short somewhere. You know what I mean? And it took a few hiccups in my fights with Kevin and Pettis and a botched weight cut for me to kind of learn, like, hey, you know, you got to look back. You got to fix things. You know, you don't fix things when you win. You fix things when you lose. You fix things when you fuck up. So it's like, when you mess up. So it's like, that's kind of part of this whole martial arts experience, is you just got to fix things at the proper time. And I would never look back on my career at 55 and think it was a bust. You know what I mean? I won the show back when I was still a lightweight. You know, I won one of the toughest seasons of The Ultimate Fighter, if not the toughest. I got to lock horns with some really tough fighters. I had some fun fights. I won some bonuses. I got some fight of the nights. Like it was a good run. But now I feel like I can put on even better performances than I did before. And that's given me a lot of hope that I can really make this. Like I'm really starting to really, truly, genuinely believe that the vision is real. I'm going to be a world champion someday. You know what I mean? It's not just a hope anymore. It's a true belief, so it's an exciting time right now.
Yeah, for sure. Do you think weight cutting at some point is going to become obsolete? Because it seems that's the way it's going, at least weight cutting as we know it. I'm sure, obviously, there'll be some sort of cut to make the weight class. But as far as like really draining yourself, it seems that's starting to go away.
Yeah, and it's not the UFC enforcing anything. I don't think it's the state athletic commissions and them changing their rules and regulations. I don't think that's what's making this trend kind of sway away from extreme weight cutting. I think it's guys that get on the front, get out as front runners like Dustin Poirier, Daniel Cormier. These guys that are amazing fighters. You see the success they have going up in weight. That it's like, well, it's not like you look at it like, well, if they can do it, I can do it. Like, it's not like you're looking at it like downplaying what they're doing, but it's like, wow, look at the success that they're having by eliminating this. For me, the biggest one for me was Dustin Poirier. You know what I mean? Because when he was at 45, I remember seeing him at the airport one time and was like, dude, this guy is like wide. He is barrel chested. That's a big 55 pounder, and he's cutting to 45, So I would see him and be like, well, I'm not alone. At least I'm not the only guy that's cutting a ton of weight. And I saw him go up in weight class and saw the success he was having. I mean, look at his win streak he had going into that Khabib fight. I was like, you know what? Maybe that's what I need to do. Maybe I need to make a change in my weight class. Like, look at the success Dustin Poirier is having. Now, look at what he's doing. There's no reason why I shouldn't give myself the opportunity to do the same thing. You know what I mean? And I just think that with my style of fighting, I just don't think weight cutting really makes a lot of sense. I know a lot of people will say, well, you're a grappler and cutting the most amount of weight makes the most sense so you can be the biggest guy. And it's like, no, I really disagree with that. I think that if you're going to be a grappler, you need to lift a lot of weights. You need to get really physically strong and fast, and you need to work on your strength conditioning as a whole. And you can't do that if you're going to cut a bunch of weight. You have to put the weights down, and you have to run a lot, and you got to get thinner. You got to lean out in a crazy amount of ways. And it's like, yeah, this doesn't make sense. For my style, I need to not cut a ton of weight. I need to hit the weights more. It's like the polar opposite. So seeing Dustin Poirier's success was really what kind of like influenced me to make that jump.
Yeah, and
Thank you, Dustin Poirier. I really appreciate it.
Have you told him that?
No, but I seriously would if I ever saw him. You know what I mean? I would say that, and maybe some other guys have said that too. But that would be a guy like if I saw Dustin, I would definitely be like, hey, by the way, thanks. You know what I mean? You're kind of leading the charge, and you are right. Like the trend is slowly starting to die down a little bit, and it's a good thing, man.
A couple of things on your opponent, RDA. As you said, he's had some losses as of late, but those losses have come to Leon Edwards, and then the two guys that are fighting for the title at 245, right? Kamaru Usman and Colby Covington. In your mind, sure, he's not a champion anymore, but he's still a top 5 fighter, right? Is this the most dangerous fight you've ever taken?
Yeah, for sure, hands down. The most dangerous guy, yes, but I don't really look at it as like a dangerous fight. Like a dangerous fight is like, you've lost your last 2 fights and you're fighting Carlos Condit. That to me is a dangerous fight because it's like the do or die, the pressure of like winning and keeping your job or losing and getting cut. That's a dangerous fight. You know what I mean? Is this one of the most dangerous guys? Yeah, 100%. But like I said, the pressure is off. And when the pressure is off and I can have fun, that's when I fight my complete best. You know what I mean? Like 2 wins in a row, fighting a top-ranked guy. Not a lot of people are probably counting me to win this fight. Like, dude, let's just go out and have fun. Let's just train as hard as you possibly can. Implement your game plan. Go out and fight this guy bell to bell. And I believe I'm going to beat him. You know what I mean? And even though I have respect for the guy, we all need to say that we believe we can beat our opponents when we are assigned to fight them. Like he should say the same thing about me, and I'm sure he is. He's probably saying he's going to take my head off, and that's great. But in terms of this being a dangerous fight, I don't think this is a dangerous fight. Do I think this is a dangerous opponent? Absolutely. This guy is tough as shit. So, yeah, let's do it. I'm excited.
And I want to talk about your division. Obviously, you said that you pay close attention to it, and you've always have. Every time I've talked to you, you've always paid close attention to what's going on around the game. Big fight coming up at UFC 245, Covington versus Usman, or I should say Usman versus Covington. How do you see that one going? Because that's a tricky one, right?
Dude, it's really tricky. I was very sold on Kamaru. Just the way he beat Woodley, and I'm thinking like this is going to be the guy, for a while. He's going to run it for a while, and then I saw the way Covington fought Lawler, and to throw over 500 strikes in a fight, and you're a wrestler, it's like, all right, now this kind of changes the whole dynamic of the way I look at this matchup. I don't think Usman really gets tired in his fights, but he's just, he relies on the grinding a lot more. Where Covington showed that he can rely on volume striking and mixing that in with his wrestling. That could be frustrating for a guy like Kamaru. It's just dude. It's a really tough matchup. I mean, this is either going to be one of those fights where the wrestling credentials are going to negate each other, and this could be a crazy stand up fight, or it's going to be one guy just totally superiorly wrestling the other. I don't think that it's either going to be a stand-up fight, or I think one guy's wrestling is going to be better than the others, and they're going to be able to floor him. You know what I mean? I don't see there being a ton of wrestling exchanges. I think it's going to be an instance where whoever it is, I mean, if you look on paper, you're going to say Covington's the better wrestler because he wrestled Division One. He wrestled at Oregon State. Pretty sure he's an All-American. Yeah, on paper you would say probably him, but dude, you never know. So it's either going to be a striking battle, or just one guy's going to surprise the other with the wrestling and be able to keep them on the ground, keep them in their wheelhouse. I'll be there to see it. So, we'll see what happens. I'm excited to watch the fight for sure.
Yeah. And it seems also like if you beat RDA, he's a top 5 guy. It seems where the room to keep climbing is very small. I mean, you could be, especially if you get a convincing win, you could be a win or two away from perhaps a title shot, right?
Oh, 100%. And this is one of those things where I beat a guy like RDA. There's no backward steps from there. Like it's either going to be a guy ranked higher, and that's it. You know what I mean? So no backward steps. That's the way I look at it. Once you get in the rankings, it's like you got to just keep stepping forward until you lose to the guy ahead of you, and then you can start considering guys below you. But this is really the opportunity for me to make a big leap in my career. A big leap in my skills, and this is what it's all about for me. I can't emphasize it enough. I'm finally in this position that I've wanted to be in for so long, where I get to fight a guy like RDA. You know what I mean? Like he is truly top 5. There is these big ramifications, this situation I've always wanted to be in. You know what I mean? Where it's right on the brink of the big fight. Yeah, this is what it's all about. And it couldn't have happened to me at a better time. 31 years old, about to be 32. I'm in my prime. Everything's clicking. My camp is right. Everything's good. Like my home life's good. My social life is great. Everything is perfect right now. So if there's no better time for a fight like this than right now.
Yeah. And it seems like, as you mentioned, like you could be right there if you get a big win. And you mentioned how the waters at welterweight are kind of murky, but looking where you came from, right, 155, it seems it's a much easier path here, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the thing that made 155 different is the Conor McGregor factor. You had at one point in time when I was still at lightweight, you had interim champion Tony Ferguson, undisputed champion Khabib, and then you still had Conor. This was before he lost to Khabib, where Conor was still in a position where he could just jump in whenever he wants. As he should be. People will hate that I say this, but a guy that simultaneously won 2 belts in 2 different weight classes, there is a sense of he should be entitled to do those things at that point in time. Maybe not so much anymore after the Khabib loss and them kind of moving on with the titles. But at that time, there was basically 3 champions. There was 3 champions at lightweight, and it was too many. So, the waters are definitely a lot less murky in that aspect of welterweight. But in terms of talent, it's freaking stacked, dude. There's guys that aren't even ranked that are tough as nails. You know what I mean? And very similar to lightweight. But, those are the fun divisions to be in, man. I'd rather swim with the sharks than swim with the fish. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And yeah, you don't have 3 champions. You probably have 2, right? If you count the BMF title now.
Yeah, yeah. You know what? It's now that you bring the BMF title into it, and technically Colby's still running around with his interim championship. Yeah, it's just as fucked.
Yeah. But I mean, at least those 2 are fighting, right? So you'll get some sort of
Yeah,
resolution
that,
soon.
that takes one out.
Yeah.
That takes one out for sure.
Real quick, what are your thoughts on the whole BMF thing and just some sort of Masvidal's rise? Because maybe a lot of people don't know, but you fought him way back when. You guys went and had a nice little scrap.
Yeah, we got robbed of fight of the night. Yeah, he handed me my first pro loss, and I've never learned more about myself as a man and as a fighter in one event. You know what I mean? Like that guy, he taught me a lot of things about myself. I learned. Joe Silva said this to me. His exact words were, I'm walking to the bus, and of course, walk up to Joe Silva. I'm like, hey man, I'm sorry, because I kind of asked for the fight. My opponent fell out. I was supposed to fight Reza Madadi, and when he called me, this is before I let my managers handle my matchups. I did it myself. He's like, hey, your opponent fell out. Who do you want to fight? And I'm like, who's available? He named all these guys. Then he said, Jorge Masvidal. I'm like, oh, I want to fight him. He's like, whoa. Why do you want to fight him? I'm like, he's the toughest guy on the list. And he's just like, well, are you sure that's the fight you want? Because I don't think, not like he said no, but he just kind of was like, almost kind of trying to be like, well, what about these other guys? You know what I mean? And I was like, no, that's who I want. I want him. And he said, after the fight got over, I went up and apologized. And he said, hey, the lesson that you learned that night, most guys have to learn that lesson taking a total one-sided ass beating and getting totally messed up and busted up and having to go to the hospital. You learned a lot of invaluable lessons without having to take the beating that goes with it. And I was like, you are correct. That was a fight I was not ready for at that time. And since then, Jorge's an awesome guy. He's a guy that once in a while we always talk about maybe going on a skiing trip together or something. And it's Rocky and Apollo. He beat me by 1 second. Just 1 second. So it's he's a good guy. And with the BMF title, like, dude, both those guys deserve it. You know what I mean? Like, everybody wants to get pissed off about them creating an event around 2 guys and it's a title and it's not to a weight class and all this stuff. And it's like, you know what? As a fighter, I'm biased. I say, who cares? Like, these guys deserve it. These guys deserve a big payday. It's a polarizing matchup, East versus West. It's everything you want as a fan and more. You know what I mean? So to make that fight, yeah, you make a freaking belt for it. Who cares? Boxing makes weight classes and shit all the time. There's 100 different million weight classes in boxing. Like, who cares if we make up a title for one of the biggest freaking events that we've had in the last 5 years? Like, dude, those guys deserve all that and then some. And now the things you can do with Jorge Masvidal, screw it, set him up in a boxing match. You know what I mean? Like, let him do it. Jorge is in a great position that he can be whatever he wants to be. If he wants to jump into the title fight after 245, he can do that. If you really wanted to get a boxing match with Canelo Alvarez, you could probably make it happen. You know what I mean? People love these crossover fights. I don't disagree with him at all. He's in a good position, man, and Nate is as well, and both of those guys deserve it.
Yeah. Yeah, it seems almost all the fighters that I talked to and I asked them about Masvidal, it seems they're all happy for him. I mean, you can make some different scenarios with other fighters where fighters, there's some hate, but with Masvidal, everyone's like, yeah, that guy deserves it, like, for the most part.
Dude, he's a living example of the American dream. You know what I mean? The way his father came into the United States, him and his path to the position that he's in now, it embodies the American dream. And he's like him and Nate, they both embody the American dream, coming from nothing and, turning their lives into something great. It's a beautiful thing for both guys. And, it's cool for me because I can say, I can look back on my career and say, hey, I actually fought the BMF champion one time and I actually gave him a good run for his money, so it's cool to see him have his success. And same with Nate, it's pretty awesome.
Yeah. How old were you when you fought him, by the way? Because that was a while back.
That was 2013, so I was 25. Yeah, 6 years ago. Young and dumb, dude. Wanting to fight the guy that was in the backyard street fights. I was not ready for that at the time. I thought I was, but I wasn't.
It's been a wonderful chat. Look forward to your fight on January 25th against RDA. It's a very important fight, but stylistically, I think it's going to be a banger. That's a very good matchup. So best of luck for you there, and thank you so much for doing this interview.
Thank you, Danny. I appreciate it.
All right, Michael Kiss, always a great interview. Danny did a good job with that, and I said, sounded good, man. And if you check out any of the video that goes along with it, it looks good. So he did a good job with the technology out there. Again, obviously did a great job on the video edit as well. But some good stuff, man. Michael Chiesa just sounds like he's in a good place, man. And man, a good dude. It's been fun to watch him grow as a person. Of course, you know, he had a very tragic entrance into the UFC as well, with his father passing away just as he started on The Ultimate Fighter. I mean, what a wild situation to be in. But man, he continues to grow as a person, as a fighter. Was reminiscing the other day with Dan Tom about the announcing gig that Michael Chiesa and I did together out in Italy several years back for Venator. That was the night that Emil Meck beat Husamar Palhares. There was a couple other guys that made it to the big show off of that card as well. So it was a fun event, man. I had a really good time calling fights with Michael Chiesa. I think we called like 19 fights that night or something. That was crazy. But he's a good dude, man, and that's a big fight, man. As he said, man, there's no going back. You beat a guy like RDA, so I'm excited for that one. Listen, holidays. I want everybody to enjoy that weekend. I appreciate you letting me have a little bit of your time. Hopefully provide a little bit of entertainment on a slow weekend. There's not a ton of content coming out. Next week I will be in Dallas. I'm going home just to visit family for a couple days. My son's going to go out there as well. He's actually going to compete in a jiu-jitsu tournament while we're out there in Dallas, but kind of going out there to see family and make a little holiday trip of it before the flights get super expensive later in December. So we'll be out there. Maybe we can get Cold Coffee to jump on or do a little something since he won't be on vacation. Maybe we'll do something via phone, or maybe we'll get him to do a segment. We'll get him back involved somehow. But after that, the week after that will, of course, be UFC 245. So we'll be grinding on full cylinders there. Simon Head just found out that he's going to be in town as well. He's freelancing on the side for some other folks as well. But he's going to help out with MMA Junkie coverage while he's in Las Vegas for UFC 245. And I bet we can sneak him on the road show because he's always fun to talk to. So anyway, I'll let you get back to your turkey. Hope you got some leftovers. Hopefully you don't get stuck in any of that crazy shopping that goes on this weekend. Hopefully just everybody has a nice relaxing weekend, and thanks for listening.